Welcome back to another episode of Photographer Spotlight, guys. I will be your host, Michael Sasser. Today I'm in beautiful Austin, kind of cloudy Austin, but you are in for a treat. Today we are getting a chance to talk with Kara of Kara Marie Boudoir. Okay, so I made it to Kara's studio. I'm just getting set up here, but I want to show you an example of what makes her so special. And it's not her photography, though it is amazing. It's her service. She goes above and beyond with her service, and she preaches this over and over again. And here's an example of that. She asked me if there was anything that I needed, for the shoot, and I thought I'd be a smartass and say, yes, I'll have 2 Fiji water bottles to the left of my chair with the labels facing outward, the room set to 73 degrees, and 2 apple slices on a gold plate. I have 2 Fiji water bottles, apple slices, in a gold plate. I mean, that is just, if you ask me, that just makes me feel so special. What's up?
What's up?
How's it going?
Fantastic. How are you?
I am so happy that it is like 80 degrees here and not.
It's beautiful.
40
You came at the
degrees.
right time. It was not so good the last couple of months.
So Germany was cold, DC was cold, Boston was cold, New York was cold, and this is the first time I've worn flip-flops in like 3 weeks.
Well, it's the first time I've worn a leather jacket and it's 85.
It's the difference between like Texas and when you live other
Texas is a little
places.
different.
I also definitely have had Whataburger twice since I've been here.
Have you?
Yeah.
I've had it once since I've lived here.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, for any of you,
yeah.
yeah, for any of you guys who aren't from Texas, Whataburger, if you ever come, it's absolutely.
I think it's Waterburger.
I thought it was Waterburger.
I think that's how you're supposed to say it.
Waterburger?
I'm East Coast too, so it's odd for I don't know the whole.
Where are you originally from?
New York, Pennsylvania area.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you came down to big old Texas.
And I'm in Texas. Well, I'm in Austin. I'm not in Texas.
That's
in
totally
Austin.
fair.
Very different.
That's totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we really get started, I want to flash up a little bit of your images, and then we'll get into it.
Fun.
And then it's graphics, and I'm gonna
Right.
leave all this in there. And I'm like, ooh, it's gonna be cool.
I think it's perfect. I think bloopers and outtakes are the best.
All right, so tell me a little bit about your business. I know a little bit about your business, but when did you start? What are some of the phases that you've gone through with your business? Where are you at now?
Well, I have been in business as a photographer for about 10 years and as an exclusively full-time boudoir photographer for about 6.5, almost 7 now. I started in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is my hometown, very small city. And I've always really kind of been consistently booked from the beginning, even though I really should not have been at the beginning. My work was garbage. It was garbage. It was so bad. So I really have kind of built my business on giving really good customer service and just being kind to my clients and giving my all. So I moved from Erie to Austin, Texas, because I felt that it was a good move. I really did. There's a great economy here. Young, fun, artistic demographic, and it worked well for my husband's demographic too. So we picked up and moved to Austin, where I opened my boudoir studio, and that has been booming ever since.
Nice.
So yeah.
I'm really curious, actually, when you said that when you first started and your work wasn't very good and you
garbage.
focused on, I believe garbage was the word
I
you
said
used. Did you focus on service because that's what you were comfortable with, or was it the easier option versus the work? Did you feel like you had to overserve because you didn't like your images?
sort of took
No,
place there?
honestly, there was no correlation. I probably thought that I was kind of the shit at that time.
Photographers feel that way, don't they?
Right? So I didn't think that I needed to compensate for my lack of technical ability with good customer service. I just have always had a really strong work ethic, and and even prior to being a photographer, I've always had a customer service and sales background. So,
Really?
yes, yeah, everything that I've done prior to this was sales. So,
Really?
which is fascinating. Yes, and I used to butt heads with my superiors all the time because I would never do it the way that they wanted me to. You know, they want you to cold call, they want you to harass people until they buy things, and I hated that. So
Yeah.
I made it my business to be better than all of them and have higher numbers, but without doing anything seedy, underhanded, or naggy. So I just became my clients almost like their friend, built trust, and really only sold them what they wanted and needed as opposed to forcing things on them.
I think it's interesting in this specific sales environment. You know, there's a lot of boudoir. There's a lot of sales in boudoir. But when you look back and you didn't want to do it their way, have you sort of always been like that? You just sort of, because, you know, from what I see, there's a lot of photographers who like spend a lot of time in the industry. And I don't consider you to be like one of those people. You're sort of like, I have my business and I'm running my business and I'll poke in where I can, but I'm kind of focused on what I'm doing.
Was there a question in there?
Not
That
really.
is all true.
Let me see if I can put a question. I think a lot of other photographers, they sort of, whenever they hear, oh, this person did this, they sort of start to model their business after that
Absolutely.
person. So how did you find either the courage or the stubbornness to sort of go your own way?
I have just always found that there's no such thing as one method for accomplishing everybody's goals. I have always been very intuitive, and I find that that plays really well into my business and understanding, you know, even getting the inclination that somebody may not be interested in doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not even going to go down that road. I've just never felt that there was one route. I don't think that that's correct in any way of life. I think everybody needs to kind of follow their own path and figure out exactly what is best for their business and their specific clientele, because my clientele is different than your clientele, and it's different than your clientele is different than somebody else in Los Angeles too. It has nothing to do with your market per se. Well, that plays into it a little bit, but it can vary from style to style, from personality to personality. So I think it's really important to not just spend all of your time as a boudoir photographer studying what other boudoir photographers are doing. There's methods that are going to work for you, and there's tons that are not. So it just depends on your business model and what your goal is, what your end game is.
So do you recommend that you like give everything a shot? Like if this is, somebody tried
I think you
this,
make an educated guess. I don't think you just like, well, I'm going to try this now. Now I'm going to try this. I think it's really important for it to be calculated and say, okay, my goal is to increase my sales. So what do I need to do that? Well, I need to sell more. And how do I sell more? What do they want? I think a lot of boudoir photographers will go and see another photographer selling X, Y, and Z, and they're like, oh my gosh, I need those products. Well, that may not work for your business. That may not work for your demographic. They may be at an entirely different price point than you. So you selling a luxury Italian imported $3,000 album just may not be smart. So I think it's really important to actually be calculated about your goals and not just go out and try everything, because I'm a big proponent for not wasting your time either. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
or money,
brilliant.
yeah.
So you alluded to the idea of only selling and I think it's really interesting. What kind of sales did you do before Boudoir?
All kinds.
Okay.
So I did corporate sales. I sold cell phone plans to businesses. I was in gym membership sales.
Amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
let's take cell phone plans.
Wedding dresses.
Really?
Yes, that was one of my first sales jobs.
Did you sell snow to
gowns.
Eskimos?
I did not. I did sell, I remember as a child, I would, which I think is pretty typical of most kids, the lemonade stand, but I added tax to mine.
Shut up.
It was like 25 cents plus tax. And it was actually my grandmother that was like, if you charge tax, you have to pay tax. So that was my first tax lesson. It was like, oh yeah, I can't just collect it and
Man,
keep
that's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a perfect example because I've heard this a lot. Like, photographers don't want to. They feel like they're being pushy salespeople when they're like, "Ooh, this is this beautiful album," and talk about all the amazing things about that album. They're like, I don't want to push them into buying something that they don't want. And I think what they're really saying is, I don't feel like the value of my work, constitutes, or the value of the products that I'm selling constitutes this high price point. So for you, when you say like, I only want to sell them, I only sold them what it is that they actually wanted, I think it's entertaining. Cell phone plans and gym memberships are not like, they're kind of like dreaded conversations.
Right, yeah, you have to have it, right?
Yeah.
Right, so it's like, do I go with this plan or this plan? Do I go with this fund or this? So it comes down to there's need and then there's desire. And obviously boudoir photography is a luxury business. This is not a need. And I sometimes have to remind people of that when they're cranky pants about not getting on my schedule or something like that. This is a luxury service. This is not something you're going to die if you don't do. So I think it's really important to build the story around why it is, who your customer is, why they're doing this, and be targeting your marketing and your sales, if you want to call it that, to those people and to that storyline. My storyline is women that are doing this for themselves. They can be married. These aren't all single women, but they need to do this for themselves for X, Y, and Z reason. And the same thing kind of applies to selling, say, an album. I educate them. I've created a collection of products that I think represent my brand well and that my typical demographic is going to love. I educate them on all of the options. I show them the differences, let them feel things, let them touch things. They're always like babying the giant, most expensive album because they're my kind of people. Like, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, but I want this one. They don't need that one, but it's going to showcase their images bigger and better, and they're going to feel more proud about them.
So what is your response to, first of all, I know that branding and marketing and sales, it all starts like even before they send you the first email. They're going through your website and they're reading your content and they're reading your blog posts and they're hearing other people speak about it, and then they're watching your video, and you have so many things. What happens when somebody messages you and says, I want to get this as a gift for my husband? How do you respond?
I don't correct them on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say, I think it's for you.
Just to be clear.
Fine. They're allowed. I'm not going to turn away business. But I find more often than not, if somebody wanted to get their husband a gift, they'd buy him a damn watch. It's not like they're doing it for themselves. They're just looking for a reason to do it, and that's fine. Women need that. We need a reason. We carry guilt. I hate it about us. We have so much guilt about treating ourselves or buying ourselves something or taking time alone or taking a vacation. So they need that validation that it's okay because I'm doing it as a really good gift, which it is a great gift. It's a fantastic gift, but it's more transformative for the woman herself.
So I absolutely love your work, and I can tell that it comes from a different place. When I'm shooting and I look at my images, everybody has their style. Mm-hmm. Now, you've talked about boudoir as an art form, so tell me a little bit about that.
So I think, as you said, everybody has their style and they have things that they're inspired by. And my inspiration behind my work is all about the inner transformation. So I don't, whereas a boudoir photographer whose target demographic is women who are doing it for their spouse or partner, they may shoot differently, and I think they should. I think that's just smart business, is to shoot for what your story is. And my story is all about the woman. So I'm not as concerned about shooting something that is going to be more, I guess, erotic, we can say, or something that would be more represented by somebody who's shooting for to embrace one's sexuality. Mine is all about embracing confidence, being a strong, independent woman, and just kind of falling in love with yourself. So that is going to change the way that I shoot a little bit. I'm not going to be doing so much like boobs and booties, although I love the booty. And I think that it's the most beautiful curve. It really is. So, and I spent the summer in Europe this past summer, and I went to every like bucket list art museum in Greece and in Italy and in France. And it was so amazing for me to, although I studied a little bit of fine art in the past in college and in high school, it was really amazing for me to see all of these, like the original art form, which is the female body.
So different, yeah.
And all of the sculptures and just the way that they were posed and kind of so effortless. And it wasn't, even though they were nude, it wasn't about sex. It was just they were nude and that was their natural form, and it was beautiful. And, they had, pudgy bellies and wide hips and big feet, and, the evolution of the female body has changed so much. But I think it's just so cool to see how photography and how all different art mediums have evolved over the years. And I like to infuse a little bit of that fine art into what I shoot. And I want it to be more about not necessarily, oh, here's a butt, which butts are awesome, but I see lines, curves, light, and in a very beautiful way. So everything that I shoot is with that in the back of my head, that this is for like female confidence. This is for a woman that is doing it for her own self-love, and this is an art form.
Very interesting. So it's not so much like, because basically you can have somebody who's wearing more clothes, but it can be like really sexual. And
Yep,
you can have
absolutely.
somebody who's completely nude and have it not be sexual.
Right, yes.
And this is something that I try and explain to my clients when they're like, I don't know how risque I want to get. I don't think I want to show my chest, different things like that. I said, we can shoot, sexy images with you being clothed. It's sort of, there are other things that make something sexy.
Yes, absolutely.
And so what I think is really interesting about what you just said is, you're not saying your body is beautiful because it's sexy.
Oh, yeah, no.
And
It's just beautiful.
It's just beautiful.
The female form is just exquisite.
And I think at least what I get from my clients when they come in is they think in order to feel beautiful, they have to look sexy.
Right.
They think that those two things are connected.
Right.
I'm seeing these pictures of these other women, and if I could look that skinny, or if I could,
Yes.
Whatever it is, then I would feel, whatever it is I feel like they feel. Yeah. And so I think it's really interesting that you're kind of taking that element out and putting this other thing in front of them.
Yes.
And which seems like is much more powerful for your clients.
It is, absolutely. My clients they see that, and what's really cool is I say these things all the time, and I'm a firm believer in whatever your story is, whatever your brand is, you pump that through in every caption and every blog post, everything, every image has to reflect that. So if I were to throw out an image that was like highly eroticized, which I find value in that for different reasons, but that's not my brand, it wouldn't make sense. And I think it's really important to be consistent about your brand. And my clients will come to me and say, I love that all the women in your photos look so confident. Like, that's a very specific, now I'm gonna get off on the specific tangent.
Please, bring it.
So I have a thing where I say a lot of the same words over and over. I'm working on it.
Specifically one word.
Specific. Anyway, that's another one. So yeah, I think what I'm doing is working. And I think that women are recognizing, especially women that follow along regularly, or even women that spend any time, stalking my Instagram or stalking my blog before they contact me, there's a very common theme, and they either know that it's for them or they know that it's not.
Yeah. There's something to be said about being polarizing.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And so I think a lot of people, I had a phone call with a photographer. She couldn't figure out her editing style. She was doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. She had images that looked like this, and it essentially didn't look like it was all from the same photographer. And the problem with that is you don't really know, when a client looks at your website, they don't know which kind of picture they're going to receive. And so to specialize is one thing, to only do boudoir is one thing. But then on the next level is to only do a specific type of boudoir is like the next. And I think while a lot of people think, I don't want to alienate people, what you do is the people who are going to connect are really going to connect. But also, I think it's like, I don't want to say I love chocolate because what if somebody likes peanut butter? Like people will want to like chocolate if they like your work. You know, like they'll find a way to connect.
Yeah.
And then you know, they can kind of pin who you are. So I think that's something that you do super well, and I think that's right. And I've seen photographers, they do it on the over-sexual side, which is like everything they shoot just looks like it's just like at, you know,
like
some
it's
peak.
like sneak peek of the like real live action. Yes.
Exactly. And then
but there's a demographic for that.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah.
Exactly. They're booked, you know, way out into the future, and people are looking for that. And then what I really find interesting is like beauty photography is not sexual at all. It's simply wearing a dress, but I think women still go through the same transformation. I haven't photographed it, so I can't truly speak from it. But from what I've heard, somebody who does just like a long flowing dress and has a picture of themselves that they like, they can't believe it. And it just does something so strong for their core.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be one thing or another. You sort of choose, you know, what do I want to do? I want to give women confidence. How do I want to do that? Super sexy images, really self-loving images, beauty in a dress images. You know, you kind of pick what you connect to.
Absolutely. Like one of the things that I kind of like claim as my superpower is that I find when I'm photographed by other people, and I've heard this from so many women, especially photographers, because they tend to be photographed more often. I've heard from other photographers that, you know, they've been photographed by X, Y, and Z, but they were okay, but they didn't feel like themselves. They didn't look like themselves. And that has been my experience just about every time that I've been photographed. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't look like myself. And, you know, I've been doing these self-portraits for however long, and I always feel like myself and look like myself. And that's what all of my clients kind of say to me, is that I actually I look like this is me, and we don't go overboard with makeup, and we keep it really like natural and authentic, and that I guess it scares people a little bit at first, but once they see like, oh my God, like I look amazing. This is like me on my best day without trying too hard, which is kind of my whole like shtick, is like my behind the scenes. Like if I had to pinpoint my style, I just make people look cool. Like I just want to make you look cool. That's all anybody ever really wants, is to look cool.
Just make me look cool.
Just make me look cool.
I think when photographers are first starting out, they don't have a style, and so the pictures are more influenced by whoever that person is, who's in front of the camera. And then they go through a phase where they have such a specific style that it could be anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. You can just interchange. You can just swap people out.
Yeah,
right?
that's a very intuitive thought. Yeah.
And then if you can find a sweet spot to where it's your style, their personality, then the images all are cohesive in that they all have the same identity, but who the person is sort of comes out in the picture. That's really the sweet spot. But that's hard to do.
It is hard to do.
That's hard to do.
It's hard to do, and it takes years of learning, sitting through. I think the most important thing to evolving in how you work with clients and delivering what they actually are going to love is sitting through these photo reveals and hearing their comments. You learn really quickly like the kinds of things that women hate about themselves or love about themselves or notice in photos. I can't believe the number of comments that I get from clients that are like, wow, look at that light. I'm like, yeah, thank you, right? like because it's, you know, they're not photographers, how would they know? But they know, they notice the difference. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably because they don't see it in their own everyday.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Very
what makes
true.
it different.
Yeah.
A simple thing for us, mind blown for them.
Right.
Okay, something that I ask everybody who's been on this is, what's a turning point in your business? Like, what do you consider to be something that you were doing something? You know what a turning point is. Continue.
I do. It just so happens I do, Michael. This all has to go in. It does. It
All
just
right.
does.
I'm ready for it.
So a turning point in my business. It was when I decided that I was shooting for women and not just taking pictures of women. It was when I decided that my target demographic was the woman that needed this for himself and was doing it for themselves, and they needed a confidence boost, or they just wanted to embrace the confidence they already possessed. When I made that distinction and when I started changing the language, instead of saying things like, oh, here's our Valentine's special to get something for, your significant other. When that all went out the door, I think 5 years ago, it was huge for my business. And everybody, even though I didn't make a thing of it, I just changed what I was saying. I didn't announce that I had changed my...
Karen Marie Boudoir is now shooting
just so you
for
know.
women, not of women.
This is for women. Yes. So as soon as I made that distinction, things just... not only did things continue to blow up, because things have always been really busy for me, but it became so streamlined that all of the clients that I was getting were there for the same reason, which was huge for job satisfaction. And I think really it was just big for my brand.
Did you wake up one morning and you were like, you know what? I'm going to change this. Or did you have a couple of key clients? Did you?
So I am not a follower. I don't look at what somebody else is doing and say, maybe I should try that. I generally don't, unless I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea, unless I really am into it. But I think that was the one area that I was a little bit, at the beginning of my boudoir career, I think I was a little bit of a follower there with the whole do this for somebody else thing. I used it I didn't do it a lot, but I promoted it that way, where it was if you want to, I was giving them an excuse, essentially. You need a reason. You need an excuse.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate myself for it a little bit, but just especially based on how big of a feminist I am and how important my story is to my brand now. So I kind of that was my little area of my business that I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. But I think I've grown a lot from it, and I think that it put things into perspective for me.
Did you feel like you needed, when you first started, did you feel like you needed to give women that reason?
I did. I did. I think I could have been the advocate for not needing a reason a lot sooner. And I think that there's very few. Now we're starting, especially with the whole rise of the woman right now, which is awesome. But now you're starting to see a shift in everybody's voice that it's okay. Now it's all about us. So I think I wish I would have been a few steps sooner, just a little on that. But yeah, I think it's. Everybody makes a mistake, right? I have nothing intelligent to say about that. That was not a good move on my part, but I think I did a good job at kind of pivoting.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Let me just read here. Okay, let's talk about you put this beautiful display together for me.
I did.
Which was really above and beyond.
You did kind of demand it, though.
I demanded it.
You did.
I would have been disappointing with anything less.
But that is how accommodating we are here at Karen Marie Boudoir. It's a first-class experience. Yeah.
Amazing. So tell me, when I walked in, you had the sign for me.
Yep.
I've got these apple cider. This is just so funny. But, when
I even handpicked the little icons that went on the sign because they were a little bit it was a heart and a champagne flute. It was kind of yay. But then I changed it to, I think, a lightning bolt and something else. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
You've really gotten to know
me. Emasculated it for you.
I had to go to the store to get the lightning bolt. Yeah. It's Halloween, so they had a bunch. So tell me, when we first started this, we talked about how, service was such a big part of your business. Mm-hmm. What are some examples of the way in which you go above and beyond for your clients?
For me, one of the most important things in my business is educating my clients. And I believe that that is the first step in delivering a really good customer service experience. I think it's important to let them know exactly what to expect, so they're not confused, because a confused mind is like, that's when your service points start to go down. So I think it's really important to set everything up on the website, in your FAQs portion, in all of your correspondence back and forth. If anybody ever asks me a question at all that isn't already addressed in my FAQs, I freaking add it. So if somebody's like, what color nail polish? And I'm like, I never thought about that. Like anything but chipped. No, right?
So you're saying that, like, even if it's not a frequently asked question, if anybody asks it, it goes
If
on
it's
there.
a question that I haven't already addressed and it's not completely off the wall or inappropriate, yeah, absolutely, because I want that section to answer everybody's questions. That's twofold. I believe that's offering better customer service, because that's tackling something that maybe it's something they're too embarrassed to ask, or maybe it's something that they think that I'm too busy to answer, which I am, which is why that's the second fold, is that I don't have time to answer emails. You know, I'm doing so many shoots a week, and I don't have time to answer all of the back and forth. So it's, you know, you type it all out once, and you don't have to do it ever again. You can just direct somebody to the FAQs portion of your website. So starting there is really important, and making sure that, you know, I have a really good system for automation for emails and confirming appointments and things like that. When they arrive here, you know, we're in Austin, Texas. Parking is a problem here. So they have very explicit instructions on how to park, where to park. If they are bringing two vehicles, because we only have space for one here, if they're bringing two vehicles, here's where you park, and then we meet them downstairs. They text when they get here, we meet them downstairs with parking passes, and bring all their clothes up for them. We hang them, steam them if we need to, offer them Fiji and coffee, espresso. We have a whole, like, essentially mini bar set up for them. Nobody wants to eat or drink anything prior to their shoot, of course, but we offer it. We have a little sign all set up welcoming them to the studio. They always take a picture of it. They love it. They think it's cute. You took a picture of yours. You did. And so we just make it personalized. Before they come in, I review all the correspondence that we've had thus far. Usually there's not a whole lot, because, like I said, everything is pretty well oiled here. So it's like, hey, I want to book a session. Cool, here's the date. And it's very back and forth. But I do assign them a little homework prior to their shoot with me, so I can get a better idea of why they're doing the session. I can get a better idea of what their style is, like just their everyday style.
What is this homework you speak of?
So it's just a little tiny form. It's quick homework. It's not a whole lot of homework, but I do ask them to create a mood board, and Pinterest is a good tool for that. So I direct them to Pinterest, and I emphasize that it's not to copy or replicate at all. I want to get a very, very fast visual of the style of images that they're pulling from Pinterest. And they have tons of boards to choose from on mine, which is where I prefer that they go, because that is obviously going to be the closest to my style. And there's stuff on mine that's not my work too. There's a lot of, like, vintage film photography, vintage fashion photography, which is really fun. But things that I am comfortable shooting, and things that lend well to the style that I shoot. But they're encouraged to go elsewhere if they want to. I pull up their Pinterest board right before they come in, and I'm like, okay, this chick loves black and white, or this chick, she hates anything of her face, which is what's so funny, is that a lot of my work is very anonymous, and I do a lot with hair, and it's just fascinating over the years to watch how what people are wanting from me is exactly what I like to do, right? So, and that's intentional. That's not accidental. So I think that's a good start. And then I review where or why they're coming in the first place, where they're coming in from, which now probably only about 40-ish% of my clients are from Austin. I get people flying in all the time. So they're often, like, carrying their entire suitcase up, or we are. And so we make them feel like we know who they are before they walk in the door. And most of the time they're referred by a friend. So we chat about that and how they know each other. And then I chat with them a little bit during the hair and makeup experience. I don't disappear immediately. I, find out why they're excited and all of that. But then I step back and let them have their time with the makeup artist. And that's usually when they ask the makeup artist, like, have you shot with her before? Like, I'm super nervous. At which point any of my artists will pull out their phone and be like, yes, look, and I've done it 8 times. So,
Awesome.
and then during the session, I put down the camera a lot and just talk to them. And I make it I can sense when they're a little nervous or a little timid, and I'm like, all right, they need a second, right? So I ask them about something completely unrelated, never mind that their butt's hanging out, right? It's completely unrelated, to get their mind off of it, make kind of a dork of myself, which is not hard to do at all, and just make them feel comfortable. And that's the number one compliment that I get from my clients is, I cannot believe how comfortable I was. I don't even change in front of my husband. I don't even this, I don't even that. And I was like, there's a camera on me and I was naked and I didn't notice. So, yeah.
I think you make a really good point is like, think about what's happening with the client. Are they nervous? Don't just try and like power through it.
Oh,
Sometimes
no.
you have to stop
Yeah.
and pull back. I did this.
And there's times that you'll power too. Like you just have to pay attention to the ebb and flow of things. And when they're like on and ready to go,
Exactly.
like, no nonsense, let's get this done, right?
Exactly.
So it's, yeah.
I had a client recently who she was so nervous that while we sat down before every photo shoot, we sit down and I walk through. Okay, you're gonna point your toes, you're gonna arch your back, and I'm gonna show you this. We're gonna play the mirror game and all.
Which is like my favorite thing to watch you shoot too, is when you're directing your clients, because you do it with like no holds barred, and I love
they
that.
gotta
I
see.
love
They
that.
gotta
Yes,
see.
they absolutely do. You're right.
So she was in like a t-shirt and her just underwear, and she asked for a blanket to cover herself while I was.
Oh,
I've never had this happen.
while
before.
you were shooting.
Not while I was shooting.
Oh.
Well, yes. So she.
Okay,
It was
okay.
like her safety. So
Yes,
in,
okay.
In like every picture, like 80% of her pictures, she had some sort of sheet on her.
Okay. Yeah.
But during the shoot, there was a time when I literally set the camera down and I asked her some completely random
Yes.
question, and afterwards she told me, she was like, I know there was that minute when you like asked me this question that was totally off.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what you were doing, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, they do. They
know,
do.
but
And
if that's
they
what
want
they
the
need-
pressure off of them in the aesthetic sense a little bit, and it allows them to relax and recognize themselves. I used to try not to ask questions about their everyday life because I'm like, they're in here, they're taking a day off from it. But I think it's really important, and it adds to their story. If they've got 3 kids that they're like trying to get this shoot done before they have to go to school pickup, like, I get that, and I think it's important to talk about that. And people do, I don't want to hear about all the terrible things that are going on in their life, although sometimes that happens. And it's hard, it's hard as kind of an empathic personality to take that on, but then also not let it ruin, the experience for them. I've had women, like, I've asked a question and been like, immediately regretted it, like, about their current situation or what have you, and you just have to kind of shake it off, shoot some anonymous shots for a few minutes, and go to it in a more upbeat direction. But every woman's story is really important to why they're doing this and the final outcome as well. So
I find
that's part of it.
I find that like the core reason, like the idea of like looking for confidence and trying to find beauty in themselves, that's the same, but how they got there is completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk advertising real quick and the way you advertise, because I think a lot of people, I personally, I'm an SEO guy. I get a bunch of my clients from Google, and it's great. The videos up on my website are a really good representation.
Yeah.
They sort of diffuse me being a guy.
Yes.
That works really well for me. But you don't really focus on any of that.
I do not know.
What is your...
So yes and no. So there's a difference between advertising and marketing, and I market myself constantly. I just, in different ways. I do not pay for advertising in any way, shape, or form. I don't do bridal shows, women's expos. I don't boost social media posts. I don't do any of that. and I've never had to. I shouldn't say that I've never done it. Of course, I've boosted a post here and there to no avail whatsoever. Like Facebook hates boudoir photographers, and Instagram now does as well. So, it was never beneficial for me anytime that I tried. And I try once, and I'm like, nope. So I haven't paid for advertising, and I can't tell you how many years. And any like promotional material and things like that, I think it's really important to stay focused on what is actually going to bring you business. And for me, and I think for everybody, it should be word of mouth and referrals. And that it starts with delivering outstanding customer service through and through. So they have good things to say about you and their experience. That's a very good start. But then making it easy for them to talk about you. I have a really good referral program in place that I've been working on I started probably 5 years ago and have been kind of fine tuning. And every single year, my increase in referrals is insane. Everybody that comes in now was referred by a friend. And if not, they were the friend. So I get a lot of repeat business from clients. So this year it was 38%. 2017 it was 38% repeat business. And then in 2018 thus far, which I just had to work on these numbers for a presentation. I don't usually know this off the top of my head, but this year thus far, it's 60%.
That's
repeat
so
business.
crazy.
And I hear a lot from boudoir photographers, like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. Well, it's gonna be if you keep saying that. If you keep talking about it being like a once in a lifetime pampering experience, then people are going to have it in their head that it's a once in a lifetime experience. But it's something that women need a pick-me-up once a year, all the time. There's no limit to it. And my clients always come back. They always come back.
So how do you start that conversation that says this isn't a once in a lifetime experience? When they come in and they're like, okay, I'm 30 and I'm
Usually-
gonna be getting old, and so I want to preserve this
No,
once.
usually they bring it up. They usually say, do people ever do this more than once? Because they had so much fun, and they see their photos and they love them, and they think, I can't believe they turned out that good when I was so nervous and so terrified, and this was whatever. And I'm like, yeah, imagine next time. They're like, do people do it again? Like, all the time.
Nice.
And I tell them a similar story every year. My repeat business climbs, and I have people that do it annually. I have people that do it twice a year. I have somebody that's on their 9th shoot. I have my serial shooter, I call her, I think 16, something like that. But that started before I was even boudoir, so that started another. But people stay with me, and I think that's a true testament to the power of delivering a good experience, and images as well. And I think that's a big benefit for clients as they come in, and the second time it's even better. And that's for a few reasons. It's because they're more comfortable. We don't have to work as hard to kind of break that boundary, that barrier. And then also I get better every year. That's what you should do as a photographer. And I think a lot of people sit stagnant instead of challenging themselves to learn and grow in their actual craft. So that's important as well.
Absolutely. And then I would love to hear a little bit about your referral business. So I recently got your Book Her Friends. Is that what it's called?
You did,
Book
yeah.
Her Friends, and it is so good and so
Thank you.
detailed.
Thank you.
I actually already know a few photographers. I just got one today that was like, "Look, I'm using Kara's new
Yes,
new
yeah.
referral program.
I
I'm
couldn't
really excited."
believe. I mean, it's a good guide, and I've been using this referral program for however many years, but I had no idea that it was gonna sell the way that it has. So that's good. And my thought process was, I've given presentations on this, I've written blogs about this, and people still ask, and I see a lot of people misusing it. So they had they heard about it or saw it from another photographer, so they started using it, but they weren't getting a whole lot of feedback from it. And because you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. It's all very systematic, and it is really smart. It's the only smart thing that I've ever produced in that capacity. I think it was a really big move, but it is essentially a guide, a very detailed guide on step-by-step how to increase your referral bookings. So if Julie comes in for a session with me. How do I ensure that Julie sends in 4 more people without being a used car salesman? And I do it consistently and all the time, and it's a very specific set of steps. And I've gotten fantastic feedback from it. And at the very end of the referral, like my whole guide is like, the best compliment you can give about this guide is sharing it with your friend, right? Because
I messaged you right after that. I was like, you sandbag and you're doing it to me right now.
Genius, right? But it is, and it's important. But none of that is going to work if you're not delivering an outstanding service and product. So that's the essential start of it. But my work has constantly evolved, and I look back at stuff from 6 months ago, and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? So you
grow.
You grow. It's embarrassing sometimes to look back, but it's okay. It's important to continue to grow, because if you don't, then you're just going to sit still.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to link your guide in the description.
Thank you, sir.
But
Appreciate
before we
that.
wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Uh-huh.
And that is, did you ever have a time in your business where you felt like quitting, or you almost quit?
Like 6 hours ago? No. No. Yes, of course. I think when you're in any sort of business at all and you're running your own business, it's such a challenge. And every new challenge is that, the devil on your shoulder that's like, if you just went and entered data somewhere, you wouldn't be dealing with this, right? So I think we all have that. I've most certainly had that. And I think that I find that I feel that way the most right before something really big happens. Well, I think that as you're it's growing pains. As you're getting more and more responsibility, and as more is falling on your plate, and as something big is about to happen, things tend to crumble. You run into a lot of obstacles, and it's hard, and it's kind of human nature that when it gets hard, you just want to stop doing it, right? So I've had to, I guess, train myself over the years to recognize, this is okay. This is part of it. If you need to pivot. If you need to redirect everything that you've been doing thus far, do it. If it's a problem, fix it, get over it. It's like cry a river, build a bridge, get over it. It's like kind of my little mantra. Like, nobody cares. Don't complain about it. Complaining about it or ranting about it on Facebook or whatever, it's not going to change anything. So fix it. And move on. And then you have to kind of remind yourself of all the reasons that you started the business in the first place. You have to remind yourself what your life would look like if you were not in business. And for some people, that may be a more positive thing, and you maybe need to pivot. Not everybody should be in business, and especially creative brains they have a really hard time with things like prioritizing their time and thinking business-minded, and not everybody, get a business partner or don't own a business is essentially my tough love advice. It's not for everybody, but I think it's important to note that even if you are especially if you are wildly successful in your business, you're going to have those moments a lot. You're going to have a lot of, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I cortisol levels here? I want to be on a beach with a drink. That's where I want to be. So everybody has that. You just got to knock it off and remember the end game.
That's awesome. I think basically what you're talking about is self-awareness.
Absolutely, which I didn't discover until I think 2015. I spent 2015 to 2017 actually really truly working on self-awareness and why I was feeling certain things, and kind of self-therapizing, tell me how you feel about that, because that's really important, and nobody does that. They have these feelings and they're reacting without actually stopping to think about why they're feeling that way, or if maybe your reaction to something is an insecurity, and you're projecting it onto somebody else. That's a huge one, especially with us women. We tend to like, look at her. Look at what she's wearing, when you're really thinking like, I want her legs. So I think becoming very self-aware in yourself is the number one most important thing to getting past that whole like, am I good enough? Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? So you have to take a look. I sound like Dr. Phil. You do though, you really do. And I think and that's what everybody says, and you think, and everybody, inspiring quotes away on Instagram, but I'm like, girl, I know you a mess. What are you saying all that for? It's always like the people that you're like, no, you're crazy as shit. And look at you. I see what you're doing there. But we all have the potential to be like that. I think it's just really important to actually seriously like self-reflect and understand why you do the things that you do and why you behave the way that you behave, and if you don't like it, change it. And it's a daily practice. It's something that you really have to be on top of, because if I just let my mouth run, it's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna say. Just keep going.
No. We're done.
Okay. I think
No, I'm sorry. I
it.
didn't mean to say we're actually done
we're
here.
Done. We're done when I say
No, we're
so.
done.
Whose show is it?
You get your golden apples and
And you, yeah.
and I call the shots.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor.
This was so cool.
Thank you.
If you guys are interested, you definitely have to get her book, Her Friend's Guide. It is amazing.
Even if you're not interested, you should.
Detailed. Even if you hate photography.
Plumber, I got you. I have heard, though, in all seriousness, while I'm not marketing this in any way to anybody that's not a boudoir photographer, I have had photographers that were not boudoir say that they purchased it, even though they asked me before, like, is this for other photographers? And I said no. I have had people that have purchased it and said that it was applicable. And maybe not everything is applicable, but it is. Maybe not plumbers.
Maybe not plumbers.
But referrals are important in just about every
service
business,
industry.
right?
Service industry.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Sweet.
Well done. Well done.